Me and baby were chilling. Have a drink.
You got no flash, no flash, no flash.
Black black.
You show me. Yes, it is. Can you see me?
Look, son. Look. What's up?
Sherry Dawson's relationship with Matthew Jasso looked like the kind of comeback story people love to double tap. A hardworking mother with a kid from a previous relationship finally finding her peace. A man who showed up. A man with a trade. A man with a smile and just enough money to make stability feel real. Their story stretched back more than a decade to Houston, Texas, long enough to feel legitimate, long enough to feel earned. Matthew, a carpenter by trade, always had work somewhere. Homes, side jobs, even prison projects. He stayed busy, at least on paper, and he gave Sherry the holy trinity so many women are taught to settle for his love, attention, time, and cash. She posted it too. Subtle little flexes online, proof that she was chosen, provided for, secure. Over the years, they added 2 more children of their own, sealing the deal, locking the image in place. A blended family, holidays together, smiling photos with Matthew's extended family, engagement posts. According to Facebook, they'd been engaged since March 1st, 2017. 7 long years of any day now energy, with whispers that wedding vows were coming soon. Eventually, one day. From the outside, it was textbook. The kind of love story people point to and say, see, it worked out. But illusions have expiration dates. And when this one cracked, it shattered loudly, because behind the family photos and engagement timelines was a much uglier truth. Matthew wasn't just a carpenter. He was a drug dealer. And Sherry, the devoted partner, the proud fiancé, wasn't always just standing by. At times, she helped. The love story didn't just fall apart. It was exposed. And what looked like stability was really a house built on cash that came fast, dirty, and deadly, waiting for the moment it would all collapse. Welcome to the American Crime Femicide channel. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future uploads. On the morning of November 5th, 2025, Sherry drove toward a self-storage facility in Northeast Houston, unaware that the routine errand she believed she was running would be the last thing she ever did. Just after 10 a.m., surveillance cameras captured her tan Buick entering the gated property near the East X freeway. She slowed, punched in the access code, and pulled inside, likely expecting to retrieve items from a unit she'd visited before. Nothing about her movements suggested urgency or fear. She parked calmly, got out, and began walking toward the unit. Seconds later, another vehicle followed her through the gate, a white 2004 Ford F-250 with a mismatched dark front end. The truck did not belong there by coincidence. Investigators would later determine it entered almost immediately after Sherry, too close in timing to be random. A storage facility employee later told police that within minutes of the vehicle's arriving, he heard gunshots from across the property. The sound was sharp and unmistakable. By the time anyone processed what they were hearing, the pickup truck was already speeding away. When Houston police arrived around 10:15 a.m., the scene told a grim story. Dawson lay dead near her vehicle, which was parked only about 15 feet away. The trunk of her car was open, as though she had been interrupted mid-task. She had been shot multiple times, struck in the head, neck, and arms. Shell casings littered the ground around her body. There was no sign of a prolonged struggle, but the placement of her wounds suggested she tried to defend herself in the final moments of her life. She was pronounced dead at 10:19 a.m., and detectives immediately ruled the case a homicide. Not long after police secured the scene, a man approached officers, visibly distressed. He identified himself as Sherry's common-law husband. He told investigators she had gone to the storage unit to retrieve items and had taken longer than expected to return. When he came to check on her, he claimed he discovered her body. That man was Matthew Jasso. What initially appeared to be the reaction of a frantic partner quickly took a different turn. While speaking with police, Matthew admitted he was involved in drug trafficking. Not loosely, not peripherally. He described himself as a middleman, someone who handled money transfers between buyers and suppliers. That admission reframed the entire case. What detectives were now looking at was no longer a random killing or a domestic dispute, but a murder potentially tied to organized drug activity. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a drug deal that had gone catastrophically wrong. According to affidavits later detailed in court filings, a Detroit man named Kip Stitts had wired or transferred approximately $125,000 to purchase cocaine through the drug network Matthew was connected to. The money moved, but the drugs never came. Instead, the supplier allegedly kept the cash. Matthew, acting as the intermediary, reportedly received a $10,000 cut for facilitating the transaction, even though the deal ultimately collapsed. Stitts, now out a six-figure sum, was furious. Investigators believe he began plotting retaliation, including plans to rob the supplier who had taken his money. Word of this plan traveled fast in the drug world. About 2 weeks before Sherry's murder, according to police accounts, it became known that Stitts was actively looking for Matthew. The pressure around the failed deal intensified, and what had once been a financial dispute escalated into something far more dangerous. In the days leading up to November 5th, witnesses noticed strange behavior around the storage unit where Sherry would later be killed. Multiple people reported seeing Sherry and Matthew driving repeatedly up and down the street outside the facility. Surveillance footage later corroborated those accounts. Matthew's vehicle appeared multiple times, circling the area as though he were scouting or waiting. This was not a single visit. It was a pattern. The repeated drive-bys suggested anticipation, not chance. Despite their usual habit of traveling together, something changed on the day of Sherry's death. According to family members, Matthew almost always rode with Sherry, regardless of where he was going. But that morning, he decided they would take separate vehicles. He sent Sherry to the storage unit alone. That decision would haunt her family long after her death. Another detail troubled investigators and relatives alike. Before coming to Houston, Matthew had reportedly been in contact with Kip Stitts. That contact was not secret. It was known enough that Houston police reached out to Matthew and even spoke with his father, asking about his intentions upon arriving in the city. Law enforcement was already aware that tensions surrounding the failed drug deal had not cooled. Despite this, Sherry was still sent to the storage unit by herself. The most unsettling revelation came hours later. At nearly 2 a.m., long before medical examiners contacted Sherry's parents, Matthew reached out to family members and told them Sherry had defensive wounds on her body. That information was not public. It had not been released, and it raised a question that has never gone away. How did he know? Defensive wounds mean Sherry fought. They mean she was aware of the danger she was in. They mean she did not go quietly.
Back up to 2 months ago when she was first gunned down, it all seemed so random at the time. A lot of folks wondering who would do this and why. Well, now we're learning police knew almost right from the get-go.
A story of friendship, business dealings, and double dealing outlined in court documents that all culminated in a North Houston woman's death. 33-year-old Sherry Dawson gunned down at this storage unit along the East X Freeway November 5th. And now, months later, police have charged a Detroit man, Kip Stitts, with murder. Stitts, police say, a friend and business associate of Dawson's common-law husband. The same day as Dawson's murder, police say her husband came forward and told them about Stitts. According to court documents, he said he introduced Stitts to a cocaine supplier, and when Stitts told him he was planning to rob the supplier, the husband of the supplier hatched a plan to steal from Stitts. Police say the husband told them about a month before the murder, Stitts paid him $125,000 for a shipment of coke, which he and the supplier never delivered. According to charging documents, the husband told investigators about 2 weeks before the murder he got word that Stitts was looking for him, and that he believes his wife was killed because he stole money from Stitts. Police say surveillance video shows the victim pulling into this storage lot the morning of November 5th. She's followed through the gate by a truck police say Stitts was driving. Officers note for a whole 2 minutes, both vehicles engage in stopping, reversing, and turning around. A minute later, the victim falls to the ground. The suspect walks over to her, and a fight ensues. The victim gets up, but then falls down again, and the suspect takes off in his truck. Police pulled over a different vehicle registered to Stitts later that day, but Stitts wasn't in the car. Investigators say his phone began pinging in Detroit the next day, but 2 months later, he still hasn't been captured.
As the investigation unfolded, police tracked the white Ford F-250 seen fleeing the scene. The truck was linked to Kip Stitts, who authorities believe left Houston shortly after the murder and returned to Detroit within hours. Harris County prosecutors later charged Stitts with murder, identifying him as the suspected shooter. By the time the charges were made public, he was already gone. While the legal case slowly moved forward, Sherry's family watched the narrative around her death spiral into speculation and half-truths. Early reports referred to Matthew as her husband. Family members felt that framing erased important context and shielded behavior they believed was suspicious. In response, Sherry's cousin, Christiana Prince, posted a detailed message on Facebook correcting the public record and sharing what the family believed really happened. In her post, Christiana made it clear that Sherry was not married. She stated that the man being referenced in news reports was Matthew Jasso, and that the family believed Matthew had set Sherry up. She said he had been seen driving up and down the street outside the storage unit while Sherry's life was being taken. She described how Matthew sent Sherry to the unit alone, despite knowing there was danger surrounding the failed drug deal. She told readers that Matthew had contacted the family around 2 a.m. and claimed Sherry had defensive wounds before medical examiners had even spoken to her parents. Christiana also wrote that the family felt unsafe knowing Matthew and Kip were still free to walk the streets. She alleged that Matthew told family members, "Kip got Sherry because he know I got 2 guns," a statement that reframed the killing as retaliation rather than a random act of violence. Perhaps most chilling of all, she claimed that just days after Sherry lost her life, Matthew continued selling drugs, as if nothing had happened. For Sherry's family, grief was compounded by fear and frustration. They were left mourning a woman whose life had been reduced to headlines about cocaine, money, and murder, while the people tied to her death were still alive, still free, and still operating in the same world that had swallowed her whole. When all the layers are peeled back, this case is not just about a woman killed at a storage unit. It is about a relationship fueled by money, power, and drugs. It is about loyalty that was conditional and protection that disappeared the moment it became inconvenient. Sherry may have been a victim, but the reporting suggests she was also, at times, an active participant in the drug world she shared with Matthew. That reality complicates the story, but it does not excuse what happened to her. Participation is not consent to death. Involvement does not justify execution. Whatever role Sherry played, she should have never been killed. Her life ended because a deal fell apart, because egos clashed, because money mattered more than human life. And in the end, she paid the ultimate price for a world that chews people up and discards them the moment they become leverage. May Sherry Dawson rest in peace.